Well, thank you very much for joining us for the news review. We kickstart matters with the papers we have, and this morning it's quite a stack. The Daily Graphic, Ghanaian Times, Daily Guide, Republic Press, Economy Times. We'll be talking some business-related matters. Ghanaian Publisher, The Finder, The Daily Statesman, and some others we'll be taking a quick look at. We're joined by Suleimana Brahima, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. Mr. Brahima, it's another Monday, and it's so good to have you. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Ben. Yes, it's a Monday, and it's a new month, and we look forward to greater things in the month and in the other months ahead of us.
Indeed, we do. Yes, we've entered the 8th month of the year. How time flies, how time flies. But let me quickly run these two thoughts by you. In fact, the papers capture them as well, so we're not deviating from what they say. I'll start with the SIM card re-registration. We've spoken about it in the past. And the deadline has been extended from the 31st of July yesterday to the end of September. But of course, by the end of August, if you've not registered, there are going to be some punitive measures. You're going to be paying more for the service that all of us, the services all of us enjoy, among other things. Basically, punitive measures. But why must there be a charge for the SIM card re-registration, especially in these economic times? Some are asking. And maybe even more crucial to the conversation, does this have parliamentary approval? That is another question. And, you know, there are different numbers that have been given us by the NIA, by the Communications Ministry in terms of, yes, Ghana card access, then those who have registered for the SIM card. But 5 cedis multiplied by the supposedly 17 million cards that are left would mean that the Communications Ministry would be raking in a whopping 85 million Ghana cedis. Question is, where is that going? And maybe finally, to wrap on my thoughts. So you want e-levy. You can't get the e-levy without mobile money. I mean, it's a big aspect of it, apart from what you'll get from the banks. And to get mobile money, you need a SIM card. So if people are basically going to be deprived, where does that leave something like the e-levy? Your quick thoughts on these matters, Suleimana.
Well, Ben, good morning again. I'm not surprised that eventually the registration deadline, which for me in the first place was needless, had to be extended. But I don't know why it appears that the government is interested in always subjecting the ordinary Ghanaian to needless, inhumane experiences. It was quite clear that a lot of people hadn't had their Ghana card, and having a Ghana card is the prerequisite for being able to register your SIM card. And so, given the fact that the government knew that many people, millions of Ghanaians, haven't as yet been able to acquire or have their Ghana card, it was surprising that the minister insisted that the deadline was not going to be extended, as if to say that, look, we don't care whether you have your Ghana card or not, you're going to be excluded digitally.
But Suleimana, we all knew that looking at the numbers, there was no way they could do that. I feel it was more of a threat to get more and more people to register. But in all practicality, they were never going to be able to do that.
Absolutely. And so if you look at the kind of inhumane experiences that people were going through at the Airworks Sports Stadium to get their Ghana cards, to be able to register their SIM cards, I mean, it was quite inappropriate to continue to subject people to that experience and to say that, look, let's keep waiting so that we can get as many people go through this struggle and see how many people will be able to get their Ghana cards to register. The point is, there shouldn't even be a deadline for this kind of registration. The government or the ministry, if it wants, would be able to introduce, cascaded measures that would eventually get people to get onto the database in terms of the registration and it's been done elsewhere. If you take experiences from Kenya, from Zimbabwe, from South Africa, where the process wasn't even as we are doing it here, by the end of it, in Kenya, two telcos lost a combined, number of about 1 million subscribers. In Zimbabwe, the experience was the same. In South Africa, the experience was the same. So we are looking at a situation where, if we are not careful, by the end of the exercise, telcos are going to lose, maybe 1 million or 2 million subscribers. And these subscribers are people who, through their daily operations, are able to contribute to tax, use it for Momo, and so on and so forth. Don't forget, I did say on Saturday on Newsfile that Ghana is among the countries that have introduced the most invasive and the most intrusive kind of SIM card registration.
Yes.
It includes capturing your face, capturing your biometrics, linking that with Ghana Card, and Ghana Card is supposed to have every information about you. Again, the other question is, those of us who have had Ghana Cards, we were made to provide our phone numbers and so on and so forth. Why couldn't there have been some, level of synchronization so that where there are problems, then it could be ratified? So it would have become then clear that, look, these number of SIM cards or numbers that have been issued by the mobile operators are not in the Ghana Card database. And therefore, these people would be looked out for in terms of coming to register. So for me, I really can't understand why the ministry, the minister, would subject people to this kind of experience. Sometimes one feels it's a way to show that, I am the most powerful, or, I have the power and I must exercise it. But they shouldn't forget that it is the same people who gave them that power. Invariably, what we're going to have is digital exclusion of a number of people. And research has shown that wherever this thing has been done, those who end up being digitally excluded are the vulnerable. And in this case, predominantly women, predominantly people in rural areas, predominantly people who have had no formal education or little formal education, and predominantly people with disabilities. I don't think that we would want to have this kind of experience in Ghana. And therefore, the extension to September, for me, is still unworkable, because it is not the fault of the people. It is actually the fault of the government. People are not getting their Ghana cards, and you say they must register. Meanwhile, you need a Ghana card to register. How would they do that?
In fact, so I was predicting just this morning at the start of the show that we just might have to extend again after a year. And like you said, I totally agree with you. It shouldn't even have timelines. It should be something that, yes, you can encourage the people through certain means, slightly punitive measures to get them to register. But where this is going becomes a bit... It seems to be a foray into the absurd. I'm sorry to say.
Absolutely, and look, everyone in Ghana today would love to have to register for Momo. Could we have a situation where, at some point, if you haven't registered your SIM, you are unable to transact certain digital businesses, online businesses, government e-services, and so on and so forth. Elsewhere, that is what is done. So it gets to a point that if your number is unregistered, and don't forget that you can't. Before even this registration, we had done registration before, and once you buy a SIM card, it's a requirement that the telcos must capture your details. So you are required to register. The only thing is that you don't, at that time, register with your Ghana card. So what is happening now is what in the industry is called capture and validate. In about 85% of countries where there is mandatory SIM card registration, what happens is what they call capture and store. So the mobile operators are required to capture your data, and as and when government needs it, through a warrant, the operators are required to then release your information to them. We have decided to go capture and validate, where we capture the data and synchronize it with a centralized government database, which is the NIA database. And wherever that is being used, it requires that people who are supposed to register have the basic document, which is the NIA card.
Right.
And don't forget, there is also analysis pointing to the fact that, look, in every country you would have undocumented people who are fleeing their countries, people who are in the country but just don't have access to government service. How are we dealing with that? How are we going to cater for the interests of those people? And for me, the deadline is not workable. By September ending, we will still have about, 1 million people who still haven't gotten their NIA cards. And therefore, if they decide to enforce it, more than 1 million people will be cut off. And I don't think that is what we want in the country.
Right. Let's take a quick look at the Daily Graphic newspaper. It captures some of these stories, but it starts with NPP at 30. Let's work hard to retain power in 2024. That's according to President Akufo-Addo, and he's been touting the prowess of the new patriotic party. History has it that it was actually to be named National Patriotic Party, and through some slip, it became New Patriotic Party. In fact, I think at the last National Delegates Conference, he actually started saying National and then went New Patriotic Party. So I think that is in there. That's just a bit of history there. But beautiful picture with the president, the second lady, or the wife of the vice president, I should say, among other top members of the party. There's also national standardization test results out, Ahafo, Bono region's top basic education. Government integrating Ghana system, credit system into Ghana card, that's according to the vice president. And SIM card re-registration extended for 2 months. Let's talk briefly about the NPP at 30 and what you feel the party can look forward to. What you feel the party has achieved in the Fourth Republic under John Ejekum Kufuor and now under President Akufo-Addo. We've already spoken about the SIM card re-registration. Maybe you can add that to the fact that Joseph Kome has advanced to the round of 16 in the Commonwealth Games. We started badly, Suleimana. Samir from the Samir brothers, he tested positive for a doping substance. That's not gone too well, but there's still some procedures that they have to go through. And there's also Azamati. All eyes on him as athletics begin at the game. So we can talk the MPP and then talk a bit of sports. I know you love sports.
Well, I would say to both stories, congratulations in all that. 30 years of the MPP is a significant milestone, and therefore to all the people who have made sure that the party has come this far, we say congratulations to them and also to the party as an entity. Yes, as a budding democracy, political parties are quite critical, and to be able to keep organized and strengthened for political competition is something that is encouraging. If you look at the recent Afrobarometer data, it points to the fact that despite all that we are going through, Ghanaians, the majority of Ghanaians would still prefer democratic governance to any form of governance. And we can only have democracy going if we have political parties. And so 30 years of the MPP, I say congratulations to them. Of course, there is a lot of improvements that has to happen. We talk about money in our politics, and all parties are guilty of it, particularly the MPP and the NDC. The MPP has been in power for two terms now, technically speaking, or 2 periods. President John Kufuor and now President Akufo-Addo, in line with so far the historical record. Both parties, or the parties, the MPP comes to power and is able to go through the second term elections. So Kufuor did 2 terms, and now President Akufo-Addo is doing his second term. So yes, we are making progress. But of course, again, if you look at the Afrobarometer data, everything points to the fact that we are nosediving rather than improving. President Akufo-Addo's record isn't that good, at least on the basis of the Afrobarometer data. He has the lowest approval ratings in the last 20 years. So the president with the lowest approval ratings post President Jerry Rawlings, or since 2002. And he has the highest disapproval ratings of all presidents since 2002. And so it's something that we need, or the president needs to work on. If I were him, I'll be significantly worried. Again, if you look at the data,
how much of a worry does he have? He wanted to be president, and he's achieved that. I mean, post the fact, he has been president. Whatever else happens, I mean, yes, people can talk about the broader party, but guess what? He's been president, and I mean, you can tick that off the bucket list.
Well,
he wanted to serve his country. He's done that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be too sad if that was all that he was looking for, to be president, and just to tick the box that I was once a president. I believe that the President Akufo-Addo would want to leave power and be proud of what he had done for the country, and a legacy that, you know, his family, his friends, his political party, and the people of Ghana will be proud of. Kwame Nkrumah died several years ago, before some of us were even born. And yet today, we still talk about Kwame Nkrumah. We are proud of Kwame Nkrumah. Wherever you go, there are places that you go, and once you show your passport, people say, oh, you are from Ghana, and we love Kwame Nkrumah. And that's decades ago. I would wish that we have a president who says, look, what I'm doing 4 years or 8 years, after leaving power, I would want Ghanaians to remember me for what I have done for the country, and my name to be written, you know, in gold letters in the history of Ghana. So reflecting on that, I believe President Akufo-Addo should be sad that right now, if he were to leave power today, it wouldn't be surprising for people to say that he's been the worst in terms of our fourth republic, because the disapproval rating is so high, the approval rating the lowest, and talk about corruption, and the presidency is up there, you know, number 2, both from the Afrobarometer data and the recent report by Shraj and Ghana Statistical Service. And in terms of press freedom, we've seen the ranking nosedive to 60th, you know, from our usual, you know, 30th, 31st, and so on and so forth. So various indicators really don't point to the right direction for the president, for the MPP at this stage. And I believe that the 2 years that we have ahead of us, you know, presents an opportunity for redemption. And I look forward to better governance from the MPP, a better governance from the president,
right,
so that at the end of the day, we will all be proud of his legacy.
And of course, in sports, we can wish our athletes, you know, most of them are in athletics and boxing. I think about 14 or so of them that are in there. We wish them the very best. But let's do the Ghanaian Times newspaper. It regurgitates the bit about the SIM card registration deadline, talks about its extension, and says Communications Ministry makes U-turn to push deadline to September the 30th, 2022. PURC retrieves 24.7 million Ghana cedis for utilities from consumers in 6 months. There's government committed to industrial transformation agenda despite economic challenges. When you open to page 3, there's also woman's attempt to enforce Sunyani High Court ruling against SNIT foiled, and pandemonium broke out at the premises of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust, Sunyani, on Tuesday, when a middle-aged woman stormed the premises of the state institution to tow one of the vehicles belonging to SNIT. The woman with the operators of the towing car was, however, prevented by SNIT security personnel from carrying through the intended action. Now, when inquired about from the woman, Comfort Kunedu Boating, a resident of Sunyani, she told the Ghanaian Times that her action was informed by a judgment by the Sunyani High Court on June 15, 2022. According to the judgment, which the Ghanaian Times has in its possession, the High Court, presided over by Justice Douglas Seidu on June 15 this year, ruled against SNIT, the defendant, and awarded a cost of 5,000 Ghana cedis. The court declared that the late James Kojo Arthur, a former employee of the Lands Commission, Sunyani, lawfully nominated Comfort Boating as a beneficiary of the deceased SNIT contribution. Obviously, there was some misunderstanding, disagreement there, and non-payment, of course. And it's just the action that got me a bit, wanting to tow a vehicle of SNIT. Now, that's new. That's an interesting one. But on the back page of the Ghanaian Times newspaper, suspended boxer Samet devastated. I spoke to you about Samet a short while ago. And Galaxy see off Benin to set up Nigeria clash. In the first leg, they beat them 3-0. The Young Squirrels of Benin. And in the second one, they beat them 1-0 in Benin. Any quick reflections before we move on to the Daily Guide?
Well, pensions is certainly an important issue to look at. The TUC, I think 2 weeks ago, was talking about our pension scheme and the need for reforms. I've heard about some government workers talking about their contributions, certain aspect of their contributions not being paid for months now. We all are SNIT contributors, and therefore we would want SNIT to operate in a way that wouldn't get us somehow anxious about the future and whether we would be getting our monies when we retire one day. Certainly, the woman was trying to enforce a court judgment. There could have been a way to go about it, but personally trying to conduct that exercise perhaps is what resulted in the uproar. And so I think it's worth looking into it. And if indeed it's a court judgment, the state supporting the woman to be able to redeem whatever is due her. In terms of the Commonwealth Games, yes, congratulations to those who are making us proud, those who have represented Ghana, whether they are able to go through or not. It's unfortunate that one of our brothers had to be tested positive for whatever substance it is. It's great to learn that the Galaxies are making progress, and we can wish them well. At least it's not everything negative. We're seeing things that are also positive. And so we just wish them well and encourage Ghanaians to offer them the needed support.
Let's get into the Daily Guide newspaper. Most of the stories we've seen already, but there's also Upon Kruma Settles of Fuasia Yorubi Melee. But the big story there, the banner headline, Bloodbath at NDC elections. Story on page 3. And it says the ongoing branch elections of the opposition NDC is creating a bloodbath across the regions. Anarchy and confusion have taken center stage across constituencies in which branch elections have commenced. In Upper West, the regional chairman of the NDC, Abdul Nasir Bunas, is said to have gone against the party's guidelines and hoarded nomination forms in constituencies. Such actions of the regional chairman has created tension and misunderstanding in Sisala East. And Daily Guide says it's chanced upon some nomination forms that were allegedly hijacked and signed by the regional chairman. So some of these practices we see across the board in the NDC and the NPP. We complain about these same matters. But of course, being given prominence here, of course, it's the Daily Guide we're reviewing. Suleiman Abrahima, your quick thoughts on that?
Well, I think, first of all, the MPP has gone through the level elections from branch, constituency, regional to national, and it was quite admirable in terms of the peaceful conduct of all these processes, at all levels. Of course, people talked about the presence of money and the use of money and all of that, but I believe it's a practice that is prevalent in both political parties. I have also heard about these developments within the NDC in terms of people trying to manipulate the system, people trying to, edit and edit the registers and so on and so forth. That's really undemocratic. I believe, again, that our politics is all about machinations and people trying to outwit each other. The expectation would be that these elections are conducted in a peaceful way, in a democratic manner, and all of that. But listening to you read the story, I don't have the benefit of reading the story. Listening to you read the story, the content of the story, I think that the headline is quite a bit sensational in terms of describing what you have read as an incident of bloodbath. When I saw and heard the headline, I thought that
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that there was something really significant that had happened. I think it's quite a sensational headline.
Well, let's quickly look at a few more papers and then we shall call it a review. You might find this one interesting. Republic Press. So Veep clarifies Ghana card over 1,000 interchanges statement, but not that. No one can be president in Ghana without my knowledge. Guess who's saying that? Reverend Owusu Bempah. He says no one can be president in Ghana without his knowledge. In recent times, he's spoken about some not so cozy relationships with the president like before. But what do you make of that? I found that rather curious. And there's maybe you should just take a look at that before I move to Economy Times.
Well, it's very comical in my view. And I don't know why we keep entertaining people like Owusu Bempah. It's unfortunate, at some point, it was almost as though it's real in terms of the relationship between Owusu Bempah and the president. And I've also been reading or seeing some headlines that are quite unfavorable in terms of what he says about the president these days. And it's all because we tolerate some of these comedians who parade themselves as religious people. The earlier we abandon and really show them their levels, the better. Because they keep coming up, I know who is going to be president. I have dreamt about who is the president. I know the name of the president, who is the next president, but I won't put it out. I mean, if it were so, we would all be able to do that. I can predict who will be the president in 2025, January. Oh, I had a dream and I saw who will be the president in January 2025. Vice President Bawumia is likely to win, but he has to be serious. I mean, what kind of comedy is this? But people wanting to make money will do all manner of things, call themselves prophets and malams and so on. So long as we continue to entertain them, these comedians continue to put themselves as important people in the realm of spirituality.
Let's wrap with these two quick bits. So Economy Times, Ghana's current account worsens. It talks about how figures from the Bank of Ghana show that Ghana's current account has worsened further for the first half of 2022, primarily due to higher net outflows from the income and services account, in particular repatriation of profits and dividends, which offset the gains in the trade account. You can check out more details in this story. And again, revenue shortfall, interest rate payments, widened fiscal deficit. You can put that together as one briefly. But I just wanted to end with you on this undertaking of professional law course applicants. I don't know whether you've cited it, but I want to read for the benefit of those who haven't. The General Legal Counsel has over the years established credible, rigorous, and well-benchmarked systems and procedures for assessing answer booklets and rechecking of same for all candidates before examination results are released. Thus, the decision of the General Legal Counsel in respect of the published results of the entrance examination shall be final. No request for remarking of scripts, retallying of scores, or review of marks shall be accepted. Candidates cannot request to see their marked answer scripts or the marking schemes used for marking the questions. In view of the above, I undertake, of course, you are the applicant, to accept without question the decision of the General Legal Counsel in respect of the published results of the entrance examination as final. I don't know. I've been around. I've never, maybe I don't know about what pertains in other countries, but I've never been in a country where you cite such undertakings. But we do in Ghana. Your quick reflections and we're gone.
Well, you see, when repression begins to manifest itself, you see it everywhere. When people in authority would want to deny less privileged people of their fundamental rights, you see it everywhere. When evidence and manifestations of autocracy begins to manifest, you see it everywhere. And that is what we are seeing in terms of what you are reading from the General Legal Counsel. repression, oppression, and denial of people, denial of the fundamental rights of people is becoming the order of the day. And so every sector, every institution begins to put in place its own mechanisms of ensuring that it assesses the power that has been given to such institutions, at the discomfort and the displeasure of the individuals who are less privileged. It's the same thing we are seeing in the SIM card registration. Look, we have the power. We will do what we want to be done. You can go to hell if you want. We are the General Legal Counsel. Before you come to the law school, you have to write the exam. Once you write it, that's it. However we choose to do it, you have no liberty to
you don't know what the pass mark is.
Yes.
The only examination where you don't know what the pass mark is, and even if they tell you you failed, you have no right to seek a retallying, remarking of scripts. I mean, where does this happen?
That's absolutely autocratic. And as I said, it's because, okay, we have the power. We will make the rules in such a way that, look, whatever we want to do is what we will do. And that is what we are seeing in our country today. In almost every sector, you talk to people and they tell you, look, we can't talk. The Afrobarometer data, people were asked, do you think it is safe to talk about corruption? And the results indicated majority of people saying no. Free education. Teachers, headmasters cannot express their divergent opinions, cannot express views that are contrary to the position of government.
Right.
Today, that is why we are having this flip-flop situation where the GES Director General will come and say, well, we are thinking of reviewing it.
Right.
He's bullied. He issues a statement to say, no, it's not going to be reviewed. Then the next 2 weeks, you hear the finance minister say, well,
it's constantly under review
of PSHS is constantly on the table, and so on and so forth. There is no policy credibility, and that's all because people in power want to assert their power in ways that are so repressive. It's the same thing we are seeing in the Bank of Ghana figures that you talked about. You don't know who to believe. You don't know who to trust. Today it is this, the next day it is that. I think that, again, as I said from the beginning, President Akufo-Addo should be worried that if care is not taken, he will go down as the worst in terms of the post-Rawlings era. And I say post-Rawlings because we all know Rawlings came from the military background, became democratic leader. And during the Rawlings era, a lot of indicators that we keep measuring today was not in place. And so President Akufo-Addo has to up his game. And once he does that, I'm sure it would reflect in almost every sector. Democracy is about kebi mamin kebi. Let people express themselves. Let people assert their rights. Let people have their rights. And that's the only way we can develop our country.
Suleimana Brahima there, Executive Director, Media Foundation for West Africa. I see the last bit got you even more passionate than maybe all the other things we had discussed. But thank you so much,
Absolutely.
sir. Thank
you so much. Have a great week.
I wish you the same. Well, time now for us to get into sports. We'll be telling you more about what to expect as well at the Commonwealth Games. Do stay.